Learning how to Dragonblade on GENJI is one of the most important tools in your arsenal if you want to consistently hard carry on the cybernetic ninja, winning game after game, clutching victory from the jaws of defeat with your powerful plays. Let's break down everything you need to know in order to Dragonblade like a grandmaster. GameLeap.com has in-depth GENJI guides. In fact, our GENJI section is one of the most stacked sections of the entire site. So if you're trying to learn GENJI, make sure to go check out GameLeap in the description down below. So the first and perhaps most important thing that you need to get right in order to have impactful Dragonblades is target priority. The first target, of course, is the one that you have to decide on first, and it really depends on who is the easiest to kill. Scale every single character on the enemy team from easiest to hardest to kill. Keep in mind that characters with little abilities or weaker counterplay or low health, of course, those are always great for the first target because remember, GENJI is an exponential character who thrives on momentum, and the fact that he gets dashes back per kill means that killing the easiest target first is free, then you can go on to the second and third and fourth and of course on and on and on. So now we gotta talk about the second target, and really you should automatically know who is gonna be the second target before you kill the first target. First and second target in general should almost never be tanked, and instead both of them should usually be squishies like DPS or supports. Of course that makes the most sense because you don't want to spend that much time on each target. You want to go from one target to the next, killing both pretty quickly so you could still use the rest of your blade to get targets 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now the traditional dashing really high up before your blade, that lets you get nanoed pretty simply, but it also lets you scan the battlefield on the way down, which can allow you to decide, hey, I'm going to go on this McCree first, and then I'm going to go and follow up on the Ana second, or vice versa. Sometimes though, particularly when you go onto target 3, 4, and 5, you're not going to know the exact location that enemies will be, and you're going to have to use deductive reasoning and where they were before you lost sight of them to dash in the general area of where they would potentially be. Imagine there being one choke point and you Dragonblading. The most obvious way that they would go after you Dragonblade is straight out of the choke, and you can use that process of elimination to generally dash in their direction to follow up your blade for the third and fourth kill, even if you don't 100% know where they are. You see this extremely often with players like Necros and Hawksall when they get 6k blades and they dash all over the place. I can guarantee you that they don't know 100% of where players are. They don't have like this photographic memory, and of course players can move during their blades. So they do know where the first couple of people were and they have a game plan to kill the first couple of targets, but the follow-up targets are traditionally based on a mixture of game sense and perception about where enemies could move to after the blade and just dashing in those general areas. Now, as you blade more, you're going to get better at securing the third, fourth, and fifth target, but just getting started, you could go slower, which I'm going to talk about speed a little bit later, but you really need to focus on getting those first 2 kills every single time with Dragonblade. Make sure you get the first and second target priority on point because that is the most important. That kickstarts the blade, and if you don't get that right, you're never going to get more than 2 kills. You're only going to stop there or not get any kills at all. Now, the next big concept, if you want to have consistently powerful Dragonblades, is thinking about ability counterplay. So firstly, let's talk about CCs that can shut you down during your Dragonblade. Hook, stun, sleep. Now these are some examples of some CC, but all these 3 listed can get countered with reflect, but there are going to be some notable exceptions like accretion and doomfist punch and things like that, and of course many ultimates, which I'll break down in the next section. Now, your counterplay against hook, stun, and sleep at a primary level is your reflect, which is a lot more useful now that you can easily cancel it mid-blade without having to dash. But a really underrated strat is actually saving your jump in order to do it mid-blade. What essentially you do is when you're going in for the blade, you add in a stagger jump because you didn't use your jump pre-blade to get height. You just dashed up into the air, or you started on the high ground somewhere, and then you can use that jump to dodge an Ana lining up a sleep dart, a Sigma lining up an accretion, even a stun or a hook. Then you can save your reflect for later on in the blade, and it can be more useful in order to shut down more abilities or even just raw damage. Basically, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room for air later on, which is always great when talking about the overall value of a blade. Now, if enemies don't have their ability, like a McCree already used stun or Ana already used sleep, you can usually use that as a catalyst to start blading and kill those enemies first because they have very little counterplay to shut you down. Now, the next abilities that we have to talk about are juke abilities. Things like recall, dash, fade, wraith, ice block. These are abilities that allow a target to get away or survive your blade. If you know enemies have these, then they should not be targets at all in the priority of targets unless you have no other options. What I'm saying is they should probably be the last options in your Dragonblade target priority hierarchy. Now, most of these characters are easy targets though if they already use their juke ability, with the exception of Tracer or Genji, who have multiple ways to dodge a blade. But for like a character like Mora, if she already uses her fade, she can definitely be a primary target that you can initiate a Dragonblade on. It's especially powerful if you baited out the Wraith first, and then you can go in on her, of course, if you have full health and all those factors. Now, the next abilities that we got to talk about are prevention abilities. Things like Immortality Field, Zarya Bubble. These are honestly best to bait out, but they can be difficult to bait out unless you really try for it and you're actively thinking about it. You can have counterplay with Nanoblade versus a bubble if you are expecting it, but it can greatly mess up a blade if it catches you off guard. So if you don't plan on baiting out Zarya Bubble, just keep in mind that a Zarya is most likely going to use it, and don't just try to slash dash right past somebody only to not kill them because they got bubbled. Now, Immortality in particular, though, should almost always be baited pre-Nanoblade, or else it's going to just mess up the whole blade. Against a regular blade, it's going to shut down your entire blade, and against the Nanoblade, it could turn a 4 or 5-man blade into a 1-man blade, which is absolutely atrocious for one of the most powerful ultimate combos in the entire game being shut by one single ability. Now, the last thing that you're going to have to counterplay is just raw damage. Getting headshot by Widow or getting one-tapped by Hanzo mid-blade is just going to shut you down altogether. These threats are priority threats that should be either bladed first or killed first. If you go fast enough, they might miss, but honestly, don't take that risk if you help it. The extra pressure, though, can allow you to kill them with Reflect or use your Reflect to close the distance, so definitely keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the next core topic that we have for you is tracking ultimates. Now, there are many ultimates that can mess you up. First off, we got to talk about the support ults. Trance, which you can actually kill enemies through trance with the slash dash plus extra slash if you have Nanoblade or Bongo. Now, some characters, it's a lot easier to do this and some are not. Specifically, characters that have Fade or characters with higher health totals like Doomfist, Reaper, and Mei. Those are characters that I would not suggest trying to one-tap through trance unless they're also going to grab, because there's a bigger margin for error. Now, for beat, you can slash dash Lucio mid-beat with Nanoblade or some amplification of damage. With Nanoblade, you can even kill one person even if they do get beated at the end of the beat if you swing on them for almost the whole time. Now, the next support we got to talk about is Rally, that can mess up damage combos with Nanoblade, but you can still secure kills on squishies as long as you slow your blade down and don't just try to slash dash through everybody and just run through the entire team. Now, moving on to the next section of CC ults, ultimates like Grav and Shatter. The best way to play around these is actually to do the same saving jump tech that I talked about in the beginning of the video, where you jump mid-blade, because if you can get some distance off the ground and you don't have any walls near you, a Zarya can't grab you very easily. Normally she'll grab the ground and you can dodge it, or a Rhyme will try to shatter the ground, and if you can juke off the ground, it makes it a lot harder for him to actually connect with his shatter. Now, the last thing in this category is just ults that can just kill you, like Death Blossom and High Noon. Specifically, you need to be saving Reflect for these. You cannot afford to use Reflect pre-blade up against these ultimates, or they're going to completely zone you away or just kill you altogether, and that is the worst possible thing that can happen to you. But if you're thinking about these ultimates and you know the enemy has them and you save your Reflect, they're pretty easy to counterplay and shut down, especially with the fact that Genji can now cancel his Reflect. Now, the next section we got to talk about is combos, or comboing in general, Genji's Dragonblade with other abilities. So Nano applies a 50% increase, which overall will be 255 damage for the slash dash combo. This is enough to kill any squishy, even the 251 like Doomfist, Reaper, and Mei. Now, an important distinction is the damage boost increase is only a 30% increase, which only does 221 damage for the slash dash combo. This means that it can one-shot 200 HP heroes, but it cannot one-shot 250 HP heroes like some of the ones I listed, and that's a really important distinction, because if you try to run up to a full health Mei and slash dash, even if she doesn't have ice block and you're damage boosted, and you just fly right by and you don't kill her, you're like, what the heck? And also, there is going to be a greater margin for error, so keep that in in mind. Now, Discord is the exact same way as damage boost with that 30%, so the same rules apply. Bongo is the exact same as Nano, but you can't leave the 25-meter radius or LOS of the Bongo, so that limits your possibilities trying to do an amplification blade with Bongo. Now, the last combo is Grav. Inside of a Grav, you're just going to want to slash dash combo over and over again, and just keep repeating that on top of the Grav. Now, you can add a reflect in there if people are paying attention to you, but it's best to typically be jumping above and over the Graviton's head because it's a lot harder for enemies to shoot you when you're right above them. Now, moving on to the next section with Genji is Dragonblade Mechanics. So we talked about slash dash, which is an instant speed animation that does 170 damage normally with no amplification, and can of course kill a tracer instantly. Now, the jump mid blade is important. I talked about that before. Genjis like Hacksaw on water will start high traditionally. They won't start on the ground because if you start on the ground and dash up without using your jumps, you're not going to get very high and you're going to fall pretty low to the ground, which is definitely not what you want. You want to be a little bit higher. You want to analyze the battlefield, and you want to be a little bit away from a lot of those abilities. So they will typically start on the high ground somewhere and either dash upward from the high ground or start really high and dash across the sky and then save their jump to use mid blade as a mix-up. Now, another mechanic that you might not know is that sometimes you can even slash enemies with your Dragon Blade even if they're not full LOS. The Dragon Blade hitbox is really big. If someone's right above you and you like swing upwards a little bit, you can actually still connect with them, and I've done it a lot of times when I've Dragon Bladed in my ranked matches, but the only way to learn this is through practice. Practice in the training room of your hitbox too. Learn the hitbox of Genji because it's actually pretty interesting. It is a lot bigger than just what it seems at first glance. Now, reflect in general, there used to be a lot more complicated mechanics like wall run, cancel, reflected, things like that, but it's much more forgiving now that it can just be canceled. Just try and save it to use during blade and not use it pre-blade. I know that sometimes it is really tempting to just be playing in the choke, use your reflect to get that last bit of ult charge, and then go in for your Dragon Blade. But if you don't have that reflect to use mid-blade, your opportunity and your survivability is greatly decreased. Now, in general with mechanics, you need to understand the ways that damage changes a target's lethality. You don't want to be going for a slash dash on a target that's not going to die, especially if you slash past them, then you're going to be way too far away to follow up on them. So that's really important to remember all the damage numbers that I talked about before. Now, moving on to the next core topic we have in this video, we need to talk about speed. And speed is incredibly important with blading. You see, the faster you are, the greater the margin for error, but also the harder it is for an enemy to punish you. Maintaining consistency with your blade is the most important part, but slowly ramp up your speed as you go without affecting your consistency. There's a code J90ZF, which is a Dragon Blade training, but there's a lot of them if you look them up. There's tons of different ones to practice Dragon Blading with amplification or without amplification, with moving targets or not. This can help you greatly increase your speed and consistency, and of course it can help you with that target priority thing that I talked about initially. Now, the biggest problem with speed, though, even if you can become pretty consistent with it, is that sometimes a slash dash can insta-kill a target with the first slash, and then when you dash, you're leaving yourself stranded because you do the slash dash as one motion, but the slash kills them, so you don't really get that reset off the dash, which means you waste your dash. Now, in some cases, it's going to be unavoidable, but if you ever get double boosted like nanoed plus damage boost, or the target's discorded and you're nanoed, keep in mind that it will often kill squishies instantly, and you actually might need to slow down your blade or set up a slash dash in a way that's going to set you up for your preceding kill, or if your damage boost to that amount, just target tanks instead because you're going to kill them so quickly. GameLeap.com is the best way to quickly rank up one rank to the next and become broken as quickly as possible. Do yourself a favor and go check it out. You will not regret it. Smash that like and sub button if you liked the video, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments down below. That's all we got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.